May all beings be happy. May all beings be healthy. May all beings be free from harm. May all beings love life. May all beings awaken. Welcome to another Cuke Audio podcast. I'm DC Poobah of Cuke Audio and Cuke Archives, doing our bit to help preserve the legacy of Shunryu Suzuki and those whose paths cross his, and anything else that comes to mind. I pray that you and yours are safe and comfortable, free from economic hardship, and able to get out and do whatever it is you want within the limitations of the universal precept of do as little harm as possible. So today we have a guest, Alan Block. Alan came to Zen Center in, I forget, 70s. He, had a number of years with Zen Center, and he worked with Paul Disco a lot on stuff at Green Gulch, and he worked on Green's Restaurant. He talks about that a little. He's got an involvement with Norman Fisher. Their Dharma, has a Dharma relationship with Norman, but he has his own group, and he sits with Nelson Foster in the, the Sambo Kyodan tradition too. But he has his own group, and they meet in Berkeley. Now, I forget. I think they meet online and in person. His group, I don't think it has a name. I couldn't get a name out of him, or if I could, I forget it. I don't think. And they have no internet presence. Isn't this refreshing? And so if you're interested in joining them, just write alanblock510 at gmail.com. That's ALANBLOCK 510 at gmail.com. Nice short name. Good for email. And so I remember when I asked him, like, well, what's the name of the group or something? He said, well, it's like they practice the Buddhist way of life. He teaches the Buddha way of life, or they work together to develop a Buddhist way of life. Sounds good, huh? Because really, a Buddhist way of life is not a particular way. You can't put your finger on it. And it's open to everybody. And that sounds pretty good to me. Anyway, I'm going to give him a call as soon as we've had our pause to meditate. So when you hear the bell, if you're of such a mind, hit pause and meditate or whatever for as long as you wish. And when you're ready to come back, hit unpause, and we'll be here to hit the bell and end the meditation or whatever, and we'll give Alan Block a call.
Hi, David.
Hi, Alan. How you doing?
Fine. How are you?
Okay.
What time is it there?
It's 11 a.m.
That many hours difference. Oh, my goodness. Okay.
Yeah, well, we're, 16 hours ahead of the west coast of the U.S. But we're, 19 hours ahead of Hawaii? I mean, there are places that are, I think, 24 hours ahead, and you can there's islands that are split. So you go on one side, and it's yesterday, and the other side it's tomorrow.
I haven't eaten in 3 days. I haven't eaten since yesterday, and I won't eat till tomorrow, and that's 3 days.
Right. What are you up to these days?
Well, I'm. What am I doing? Today I played 8 games of pickleball. Pickleball is a game I really enjoy, and it's carried me through COVID. It's like a cross between tennis and ping pong.
Yeah, I've heard about it. It's very popular. That's interesting. Maybe I ought to play pickleball because I stopped playing tennis about 3 years ago, 4 years ago.
Because it's a lot less running, and it's much more social. It's faster.
It's faster. Oh, that's good.
You play with a wiffle ball, so it's you have time to react, but it's really a pleasure. A lot of fun.
Yeah, I've heard that. Well, and what else? What else is on your agenda these days?
Well, and I'm teaching, and I teach on Tuesday nights. I teach Dharma. I've got about 20 students, and they show up when they do. A little frustrating.
So you're doing in-person teaching now?
Yeah. Well, no, I'm doing it online. We meet on Zoom.
Yeah.
But for a number of years, I rented a space from John Tarrant.
Oh, where?
On College Avenue, from David Weinstein Zendo.
Oh, yeah. Well, I lived 9 years with John Tarrant, and David Weinstein is my wife's teacher. Wow.
Yeah, I think actually I knew that because I talk with David. David and I meet.
Huh.
And anyway, I have a lot of regard for David. We have a good time together.
Oh yeah, he's great. Well, that's really neat. What's your group called, and how does one find out where it is? And
I'm not on the internet. It's the Tuesday night meeting, Tuesday night Zazen. I'm not on the internet. It's all word of mouth, which I thought for a while was sort of a disadvantage, but it turns out to be an advantage. People find me, and
that's great. I love it.
And I'm not very ambitious.
Well, if someone were to hear by word of mouth about what you have to offer, your group, what would they hear?
They would hear that we talk about what I call a Buddhist approach to life.
Yeah, but how would the person who hears this know how to join?
Oh, well, they send me an email, or they know someone in the group, and then I just put them on the mailing on the email list, and they come when they want to or not.
What is that email address?
So mine is just alanblock510@gmail.
ALANBLOCK 510@gmail.com.
Right.
All right.
And then I put them on the list. And yeah, if you know anyone, I mean, it's interesting that a lot of people in our generation, I think, are interested in meditation, but very few have the wherewithal to follow through. Just went and did a session with Nelson Foster. You may know him.
Well, I've met him, and I certainly know who he is, and I've been hearing about him for many decades, and I know where he lives. I have I have picked up, I guess, Gary Snyder's son there to drive him back to the Bay Area. That was years ago.
Right.
But anyway, yeah. And I remember, his teacher. Hey, remind me his teacher's name. Hawaii.
Robert Aitken.
Yeah, Robert Aitken. I was in a meeting with him after Richard Baker left with Zen Center priests, and I wasn't actively being a priest in Zen Center at that time. I was living in Berkeley, but I went to the meeting, and he just said, Aitken said, well, you just don't have any good teachers. You don't have any enlightenment here. You ought to take one of my teachers, and I recommend Nelson Foster, and he would be a good teacher for Zen Center. And then Claude Dallenberg ripped into him. Claude did not. And Claude was very critical of Zen Center, but he was quite senior. And so that was not the first time I heard of Nelson Foster, but that was one of the earlier ones. So you just sat sesshin with him?
Yeah, with a friend of mine said, I've invited a lot of people to sesshins with Nelson, but you're the first one to ever show up.
Oh, that's great.
We sat outside.
And did you set up you went to Nevada City to the Kit Dizzy Zendo there?
Right. Yeah.
But you didn't sit in the Zendo.
No, because of COVID.
Yeah.
It was like an ongo from 2,500 years ago. All these sort of people with blankets around them sitting among the trees. And we even did orioke outside.
Oh, that is great.
Yeah,
great.
so I slept in a meadow.
That is
it was quite for me.
Oh, wow.
But we sat 16 periods a day. It was very hard.
Oh, that's serious. That's quite a bit. Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. What time did you rise?
I think we got up around 4:30 or maybe 4 o'clock.
And what time did you fall? What was bedtime?
I think we were in bed by around 8:39, but there's no electricity.
Oh.
And lanterns are too dangerous. So you just have to go to bed at a certain point.
Yeah, very super high fire danger awareness area. Well, that's terrific. Yeah. That's terrific. And you fit 16 zazen's into that.
Oh, my God. 16. They said short periods.
Oh, how long?
25 minutes.
Oh, well, that's nice.
So we sit 30-minute periods at Everyday Zen. And, of course, Zen Center, it's 40-minute periods. But, it's sort of like sitting a 25-minute period sort of gets you, sort of the message is, you need to take care of this now. There isn't a lot of time to loll around. Which I found to be sort of a useful message. Took me a few days to catch on.
Yeah. The Vipassana retreats I've sat here had 1 hour periods. And they were they were endless. Well, that's neat. And what about any livelihood? Are you still? Does this support you, or are you retired?
No, I'm not retired. I still I have a project going right now, so I manage a couple of buildings for a partnership. And and I'm busy. I build a lot of things. I've been making a lot of kudzus for people.
A lot of what?
And kudzus. These things that the Roshis carry. These little staffs with the hook.
How are you spelling it?
Kotsu. Kotsu. Yeah, I think there's another name for it in Japanese, but I can't remember the other name.
Niori.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Niori. Yeah. So I always thought they were very, very hard to make. And when I got a bandsaw, and actually I can make them pretty easily. And I went back to, after 45 years, I went back to Tassajara and did a practice period in 2019.
Oh, goodness.
With my wife.
Wow. How was that?
She's never done. Huh?
How was that?
Very hard. Very, very hard. It's all different.
You like what?
Well, for one thing, people, when you were at Tassajara and I was at Tassajara, people would come and spend 2 or 3 years, was my experience, at least a few years.
Yeah.
Now the majority of people come in for a practice period and they're gone. And they've ended the guest season. You know that, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they can't get the staff. I mean, it's oddly enough, it's the same thing that the Becks ran into.
Yeah, the Becks ran that place with, 8 people, if they were lucky.
Yeah. Anyway, and they've actually given up the fancy food at Tassajara, which I think is quite positive.
Yeah, that's fine.
Really,
that's fine.
They've given that, so it's all buffet now.
Yeah.
And your sister, my wife, says, no dessert? How can there be no dessert?
Well, that's, that dessert isn't a big thing to me. Just, what I've been at Tassajara when I could eat guest food, or been offered guest food if I was there as a student for 10 days in more recent years. I prefer the student food. I'm sure it's fine. I'm sure whatever they're doing is fine. No dessert. Well, that's all right. I just think of desserts as something to avoid. But yeah, I'm the wrong person, the wrong age to sympathize with the loss of desserts. Well, that's really neat. Well, look, how did you get into all this? Where does it all start?
Well, my younger brother was living in a commune in Kashawa.
What year?
71.
Yeah.
And I came to visit him. And they said, you know what? The Zens have bought Tassajara. That was the big news. And then they said the Zens are really stupid. You can go up there and you can eat their food and drink their tea, and take a bath, and they don't say anything. So one day we all.
Well, that certainly wasn't true, but maybe in '67 when we first got it, that was true. I was there right away. Yeah, neighbors came in, we'd feed them, let them take baths, didn't say anything. Didn't want anything from them. But 70, 71, nah.
Anyway, so we all piled into my car and went up there and hung out at the Narrows and got stoned.
Yeah.
And I was coming back, and there was this Japanese man on the bridge. And as we walked by him, he turned around like 180 degrees and just looked at us and smiled. So I sort of remembered that. That was 71. In 72, I decided I really liked the Ventana Wilderness. So I came back in 72, and my brother dropped me off at the dam, the Kashawa Dam. Remember that? By the
oh,
store?
yeah. That's an interesting place to start from, huh?
Yeah, so, and I walked from there in a couple of days. I walked into Taos Sahara.
Yeah, that's a serious walk from there.
And then I wanted to camp, and Arnie was sitting there. Arnie Kotler was sitting in front of the office on a rock. And he said to me, "You come here, check this out." I said, "No, I don't think so. Not interested." But and I said, "I'm going to camp up creek and just come in and take a bath." He said, "Nope, can't camp here.
Yeah.
You have to leave the watershed."
Yeah.
So I hiked over the Tony Trail.
Woo.
And
that's the steepest trail in the whole national forest. That's what a ranger told me.
Yeah. So I hiked over to Willow Creek and then came back 2 days later, and he was still sitting there. Arnie still sitting there. And he said, "You got to come in here and check this out." And I remember thinking to myself, how am I going to get out of here? And my feet are sore, so I said, "Okay, I'll do it." You know? I couldn't admit to myself I was curious. I think I was curious, but I didn't. I was too. The mask was too heavy. So I came in, and he said, "But you have to stay for 3 days." That was the policy.
Go on.
So I came back. I went down Willow Creek and then came back around the horse pasture. And then 3 days later, he was still sitting there. And I just said, "What am I going to do?" So I agreed to come in for a couple of days. The first time I sat, it was like it just went right through me. You know, it sort of knocked me over. The very first time I sat, I didn't know what was happening. I just brought up so much emotion, so much feeling. And I didn't know, but I think that was it right there. I was hooked. So I ended up spending 2 weeks. But, you know, after 3 days, there was another guy who came in at the same time as I did and agreed to stay for 3 days. At the end of 3 days, that guy ran out the road. He couldn't get out of there fast enough. The guy said, "I'm out of here." But I stayed for 2 weeks.
Oh, that's good.
And Ed was the guest manager.
Oh.
And Ed said to me, he said after a couple of days, he said, "No, we think you should leave now." He was in a terrible mood that year. You know, that was the Black Summer.
Black Summer?
What they call Black Summer, remember that?
No.
After Suzuki Roshi had died.
Yeah, 1972.
Yeah. So Ed said, "I think you should leave." And I was working, Mel was the director. And Myra, who was the head, I was working in the dining room with David Silva, actually, I'm still quite friendly with, and Myra. And they intervened with Mel, and they said, "No, you can stay. Don't worry about it." So I stayed for 2 weeks. But I had a really good job, so I had to leave and go back to work.
Yeah.
And in New York. And then I thought about it all winter, and I started sitting that winter in New York.
Oh.
And then I wrote in the spring, and I said, "You know, I think I'd like to come back for 2 months in the spring." And they said, "Okay, we remember you. You're a good worker." So I came back for 2 months in '73. And at that point, I decided I'm gonna give it up and come out here.
Say, wait a minute. Which months were they? Guest season months? They had to be, right?
No, yeah, they were April and May.
April. So you came for the interim at the very end of practice period, and
exactly
for the beginning of first month of guest season.
Yeah, Richard Hasbury was the work leader, and I think Darlene was the Tenzo, maybe.
Oh, is that right?
Anyway, so yeah, I stayed for 2 months. And at that point, I decided I would make the big change. So I was teaching in a college in New Jersey. And I had been teaching, I had a really good job, but I decided I would just try to, when my contract was over, I'd take a leave or get a sabbatical.
So, what were you teaching?
History. At a college in anyway. So
where? A college where?
It was in Newark, a community college. I'd spent a lot of years in graduate school.
Yeah. Where are you from?
I grew up in Chicago and northern Indiana.
Huh. All right.
I grew up in the same neighborhood where Peter Overton grew up, Peter and Ann.
Oh.
In that neighborhood. Peter has Parkinson's now.
I know. That? Yeah. Yeah. How advanced is it?
Well, he's stiff. You see him walking, you sort of pick it up. But he's still teaching, and he's active. I don't think he's doing appraisals, but he's definitely active at the Zen Center.
Oh, good. Huh.
Anyway, so I came back for 2 months, and then I decided, I don't know about this Zen stuff because I didn't know anything about it. And I said, I think I'd like to come here and just watch the seasons change. That was my idea. But it took me another 3 years to get back there.
Is that right? Wow.
But I was headed there.
Yeah. And what did you do in those 3 years?
Well, I finished my contract teaching, and then I took a year's leave, and I felt like I needed a transition, so I had built a van, a van for camping, living.
Yeah.
So I went to New York to Cape Cod, and Cape Cod to Key West.
Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, that's quite a drive. Yeah.
That was the way I think of.
Yeah.
And then came across the country and arrived and started sitting Zazen the first day, and that was it. 5 years.
Now, you came back. You couldn't go to Tassajara right away, could you?
No. It was they had instituted this rule, which you probably did.
No, I never instituted rules. That's true.
You were a conspirator. They said, I came back and they said, oh, no, you can't go to Tassajara. You have to 18 months in the city. We have to see if you're serious.
Yeah.
So I worked. Yeah, after teaching college for 6 years, then I went to work in a bakery with Chuck Hoy. Remember Chuck?
Oh, yeah, sure. So, yeah, I've been in touch with Chuck. Yeah. Yeah, he's in Santa Fe and takes ice baths in the morning. Outside. In the winter. And it gets really cold there in the winter.
Anyway, so I went to, so then I was in the city, and Yvonne said to me, you want to work at, we're building this building at Green Gulch. Why don't you come work on it?
Oh.
So I went to work on the Wheelwright Center.
Oh.
And the kitchen at Green Gulch.
Oh. And so you worked with Ken Sawyer on that. Was Paul Disco on that?
Paul was still in Japan.
Right. And Ken Sawyer did that, right?
Actually, it was a guy named John Ewald.
Oh, yeah. Ken worked with him. I remember John. How was working with John Ewald?
Yeah, and then Kip Mesereau was the sort of lead guy.
Oh. Well, Kip Mesereau is just a fantastic carpenter.
Yeah. So I worked on that for the winter and the spring, and then 76 I went to Tassajara to live. And then Kip used to come in the summer, you may remember.
Yeah.
So
when
he would come yeah, I would work with him. We built the bathroom down at the lower barn.
Yeah. Well, it was Gene DeSchmidt who brought him in first.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then
Kip Mesereau did work at Chez Panisse, their carpentry.
Well, when I eventually left Zen Center 5 years later, Kip hired me to do Chez Panisse with.
Oh, is that right? So there we have confirmation.
We ended up partnering.
Is that right?
So Kip and I, we bought land together.
Is that right?
Makoto, you remember him?
Who?
Makoto Imai.
Oh yeah, Imai son. Oh yeah, certainly.
Yeah,
there's another very, very high level carpenter, Japanese carpenter. Good Lord.
Yes. So we partnered anyway, and I worked at Chez Panisse for a year.
Wow.
Building the cafe.
Well, that's you got into very high end stuff there.
Yeah, I was really lucky. I met the right people.
Wow. Yeah.
And I worked for Paul then Paul, in the meantime, Paul came back.
Uh-huh.
So I worked with Paul for almost 2 years.
Wow. You were right there with the cream of the crop.
Yeah, they were great. Actually, I just had dinner with Paul a couple weeks ago.
Oh.
And we're going to have dinner. We're going to have dinner in January at Chez Panisse.
My. All right. All right. That's good.
You know the woman he's with, Brenda?
No, I haven't met her. That's
She's
been
really
since I left America.
Uh-huh. Anyway, she's really nice. She's really good for him. She's sane, she's organized, and she's not angry. Like, I'm blocking her name. What was the last?
Yeah, I can't remember her name any, but since you're saying she was angry, I knew her too. I knew her, of course, met her a number of times,
right.
But we can just leave her name unsaid.
So you don't remember, but you interviewed me that first summer at 72 at Tassajara.
Well, I've got it.
I think
it's on Kook.com.
I think Dick Baker was checking me out to see if I was sane, and he sent you to check me out.
No. Oh, you're not talking about an interview for the website. Dick sent me to check you out.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. I pretty much approved of everybody, so I wouldn't be. I might not be, but I don't know. Dick's he was very accepting of everybody too. So anyway, tell me about that. So this was what year?
In 72, he came back with a bunch of Japanese carpenters to do some project. I don't know what they were doing.
73, I think.
73, maybe. Okay, 73. Anyway, yeah. But the year before, when I was at Tassajara in the spring, he showed up there.
Yeah, 72. He wasn't around. He was just around at the very end of 71. Just arrived shortly before Suzuki Dai became Abbott, and bang. In 73, I was at Green Gulch. 72, I was in the city, work leader at each place. So go on.
So 72, anyway, he I think they were trying to figure out, who is this guy? Is he crazy? What does he want? So you were the one who interviewed me. You don't remember, but you did.
In what way did I interview you?
We took a walk. Down creek.
I don't think anybody asked me to do that. I think I met new people. I'd meet new people and I'd make friends with them. I don't ever remember being asked to check anybody out. Nothing like that. That didn't happen. I just met you and wanted to go for a walk with you.
Okay.
And why do you think you're not at all a crazy person? Why do you think they wanted to see if you were crazy? And if they want to see you, if you're crazy, they would just have to be around you and make their own judgments. They wouldn't. They didn't trust me. They wouldn't use me for that. They thought I was crazy.
You were one of the main people. It's in that era.
Really?
Anyway, I went to live with Casa Har
in 73, I was Dick's main G-ship, but I was also a work leader at Green Gulch, and I was his G-ship at Green Gulch. I went places with him a lot. That was fun. Go on.
No, so anyway, I went to live at Casa Har in 76. And I stayed through 78. Would you believe the last day I think I was at Casa Har? So I built a lot of the Zendo, the temporary Zendo, that's the Zendo now. I did a lot of that work myself. I just picked away at it in the afternoons. But the last couple of days, maybe 2 days before I was scheduled to leave there at the end of the summer, 78, I met this woman. And we got to talking. And we've been married for 42 years.
Now, that's a nice story. Yeah, good for you.
Couple of weeks after we started to see each other, she wouldn't answer my phone calls. So I said, what's going on here? We're having such a nice time. She said, well, I've decided I'm really not interested in she called me a spiritual celibate groupie.
Celibate?
Spiritual celibate groupie.
Yeah.
I said, don't worry.
So you talked her out of that, right?
I did.
Yeah. That's interesting. And what's your name?
Ruth.
And was she ever a weird spiritual groupie at Zen Center?
She was not interested. For 30 years, she was not interested in Zen practice. She had her own practice.
Yeah, it's good to be cautious.
Yeah, she was 30 years. And we every year we would see people like the Fishers socially, and Mark Lesser and his wife. And, we were in touch with people a lot. But then in 2004, is that right? No, 2010, I was Shuso at Everyday Zen. And Ruth's mother was dying. Her mother was 99.
Mm.
And I said to Norman, Norman, if she gets really sick, I'm going to have to leave. Norman said, you can't leave. You're Shuso. And I said, well, I don't know what I'm going to do. So Norman, in his typical creative self, said, let's have her mother join the practice period. Then you won't have to leave.
That is great. So
her mother, who could balance her checkbook till a week before she died, joined the practice period. And every week she wrote about how she felt about dying.
Mm.
And that was the subject matter for the practice period.
Whoa.
Yeah, she was very resolved. She said, I'm done. I'm not afraid. I'm ready to go.
Wow. Good. And good for Norm. Good for Norman. My.
Yeah. And then she was firing her aides as fast as Ruth could hire them, because she was in a wheelchair. She didn't like it. She was unhappy. And Norman went to talk to her, and she turned around 180 degrees. She treated me. She never was terribly nice to me because I stole her daughter, right?
Yeah, right.
But she, all of a sudden, she was just nice as she could be to me. But so Norman really turned her around, and Ruth was so impressed. She started doing sashins and Soto Raksu and became a full-fledged member. And actually, she's going to be Shuso. I think she might be Shuso this next year. We'll see.
With Norman?
No, at Heart of Compassion with with John Evans, Sangha in Point Reyes.
Oh.
That she goes to.
Oh. And what's the lineage there?
Ours. Suzuki.
Yeah, who's his teacher?
Her John Evans is the leader of that group.
Yeah, but who was his teacher?
Oh, Norman.
Norman. All right.
Yeah, and then before that it was Bernie and Maizumi. She came through different lineages.
Oh, wait a minute. Your wife studied with Bernie Glassman?
No. The person who leads the Sangha in Point Reyes, John Evans.
Oh, well.
She studied with Bernie, studied with Maizumi before that.
Yeah, that's what I said. Your wife was with Bernie Glassman.
No. This is the person who leads.
Oh,
the Sangha.
he was with Bernie Glassman and Maizumi.
He.
Oh,
yeah.
He. All right,
Yeah.
I got it straight now. All right.
Okay.
Oh.
Anyway, so yeah, I just sort of try to, Nelson Foster talks about teaching from your experience, not from your learning, not from your reading. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a beautiful way to think of it. So I think that's what I'm working on.
Yeah.
I think Xiaozhou taught from his experience.
Now your Zen Center days, we had you, coming in initially, establishing a relationship with Shunryu Suzuki on the bridge there. When he looked at you and smiled as you walked by, right?
Yes.
And then, so that was 71, and then 72 you came back, and then finally you made it in 75. Is that right?
76.
76.
Came to live there.
And you were in the city and at Green Gulch and at Tassajara?
Yes.
And how long did that go on?
Till about 5 years.
Till 81?
I think till 80.
80.
Yeah, 79, 80. The last thing I did for Zen Center is I worked for Paul building greens.
Green started in 78 in the spring.
No,
it started in 79. I'm wrong. It started in 79 in the spring. You're right.
Right. So we built. I was the first one to go to work there at Greens. Working for Paul.
Yeah. Yeah. So what did you do first thing?
I was a carpenter.
Yeah.
I worked as a carpenter, and I learned enough to be able to make a good living as a carpenter.
Yeah.
So I've been in construction then.
Yeah.
So I worked for Paul for a year at Greens, and Ken, and Ken's brother. We all framed, we had to raise the floor there.
Michael, right. That's what I was waiting to hear, because the first thing was building the floor, like what, 3 feet up or?
28 inches.
28 inches, just a little over 2 feet. All right.
I was the first one to go to work there. I drove my truck in the door that you walk in now.
Right. How long did you work there?
I think all the way from the fall of 78 into the summer of 79. I think it took us that long to finish it.
Well, we opened before the summer of 79. You might have still been working on it.
Yeah, we were doing some things.
Yeah.
And then Kip came and did a few things, and so did Amaya-san. And then Kip said, well, I'm doing Chez Panisse. Why don't you come work for me there?
Ah. Wow. Yeah, and Chez Panisse, Alice Waters was our primary mentor. Yeah, through Deborah Madison, but she got her job at Chez Panisse, I think I'm hesitant to say if Richard Baker sent her there or not. I can't quite remember, and I'll get in trouble if I'm wrong. So never mind on that. But yeah. Wow, that's interesting. Well, what do you remember about Greens? About building it? Anything interesting there? Do you remember? All right. Do you know who suggested or who said that the floor had to be raised?
I assume an architect, but I don't know who.
Sim Vanderen. Sim Vanderen.
Yeah, he was very involved in.
Yeah. It's interesting. He didn't do the plans. I mean, he signed off of them at the end. He did the final touches. He's sort of credited with being the architect, but there's another guy whose name I forget that went through like 20 different versions with Richard Baker, and finally just said, "I can't do more," And he was probably doing it for, huh?
I think it turned out pretty good. Those big redwood burl sculptures.
Yeah, J.B. Blount, right?
Yeah, so I hauled those. I picked those up in Crescent City.
Oh,
Jerry Fuller,
really?
Jerry Fuller and I drove up to Crescent City.
Did you say Jerry Fuller? Jerry Fuller?
Yeah, Jerry and I.
Yeah, you drove up to Crescent City. Wow.
In an old Department of Education, San Francisco Department of Education truck, and we picked up those burls that I think JB had already arranged, and they put them on the truck, and they were so heavy that they pushed the bed of the truck down into the wheels, and we couldn't move.
What, did you have the big one, the main one?
Yeah, we had a couple of them, 2 or 3 of them.
Well, I mean, the main one is giant.
Yeah,
the central one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
And it's actually bigger than it appears to be because it goes 28 inches under the floor because it's bolted to the concrete.
Yeah. Wow. And actually, everything else was quite a bit, too. I mean, that's a lot of wood in that. It's a whole seating area in a circle. There have been suggestions, from, I don't know, board members, certain people, to remove that thing. You can make more money and put more tables in there. That would be a mistake.
Yeah, they're quite something, really.
Yeah.
So we cut the wheel wells out of the truck with an acetylene torch.
Oh.
And then Jerry and I drove it back to San Francisco. Oh, actually, we drove it to JB's place. He carved, and then they came to San Francisco.
You dropped him off at JB's, right?
Yeah, it is studio, his shop.
Right. Right. When I met JB through Sim, he was Sim's neighbor, and Sim and I were close. And I saw what he did. I just loved it. And I told him, look, I want you to come to Tassajara. So I paid for him to come to Tassajara as a guest. And then everything happened after that.
He would come every year and work on those pieces by the office. Right.
I got those from a Big Creek Lumber Company, which isn't that far away. It's it's north of Santa Cruz. And he got a job with them. He built a dolphin up. You can see from the road. It was up on a pole, I think, so you could see it up there. And they were great. Bud and Lud McCreary They were great, and Big Creek Lumber Company was great. They cut 1% a year, so that the redwood forest that they harvested did not decrease, because it grew at about 1% a year. And those pieces at Green Gulch were not usable for they're all twisted and burly and everything. And they had them, with a pile of more artistic stuff. And JB just flipped out when he saw it. And I had to arrange for a guy to drive it in. And they told me about a guy, an old guy. I don't think that was, his name might have been Job Dykcraft, but Dykcraft might have been the guy who made who got to make the stupas for the memorial area. Anyway, I don't think it was Dykcraft, but anyway, he was a guy from down in that area that had this giant, really old logging truck. And he brought all that stuff into Tassajara. It took him hours. We had to arrange for him to come in at a time when there wouldn't be any guests. He came in during a practice period. And because it took him like 6 hours to go over the road because he couldn't make the turns. He'd just have to go forward, back, forward, back, forward, back. And I don't know how many hours, but it was forever. And that was great. All right, go on. Pardon me.
Well, all these bits of history will be lost with you and with me.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
I just feel like I tried to arrange before COVID hit. I was going to go to Tassajara with Paul. He's not on really great terms. I'm sure you know that with them. So we were going to go and we were going to film it, and he was going to walk around and talk about all the buildings that he had built there.
Yeah.
But then COVID happened and we couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So I'm sort of tempted to revive it. We'll see.
Do. He went in. Yeah. He went in and filmed and took still pictures of stuff for his book. What's it called? I've got it. Zen Architecture. I was thinking that, but I thought, is that really it? Zen Architecture. Yeah, I've got it on our living room table. He sent me a copy from Oakland to here.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. Yeah, please do. Get him to go back in and do that. I wouldn't.
I just think it's on the record.
Yeah, I wouldn't say he's not on good terms with them. I'd say he's just not on terms with them.
Okay.
It's like Zen Center doesn't have any memory.
Yeah, I think that.
When they remember something, they make a big deal out of it, and then they forget it again.
You're right.
You're right. It's anything that has to do with preservation at Zen Center. And there's been a lot that Zen Center has done, but they'll do it in a spurt, and then they'll forget about it, and people will say, all right, that's done. And mainly it's been individuals, the work of individuals. So you bringing him down there and doing that would be good.
The chairperson of the board at Zen Center comes to my class on Tuesday night sometimes.
Say that again?
The chairman of the board at Zen Center
comes to your class
on Tuesday night.
Huh? Who's that?
She comes for a while, then she doesn't come. But anyway, she's been one of the people. It's been nice, but.
That's good. I don't know anything about the Zen Center board. Actually, well, that's neat. Hey,
anyway.
Yeah. All right. I have more questions about greens.
Go ahead.
Do you remember Richard Baker coming in and doing stuff or anything? Any?
Occasionally he came in.
What?
It was occasionally he would come in. We didn't see him a whole lot there. But, when at Greens, everything was very tightly controlled, and then I went to Chez Panisse afterwards.
Yeah.
And I remember at Chez Panisse, I said, I need to cash this check. And I remember one of the owners of Chez Panisse said, hey, what are you bothering me? You know where the cash box is. Just go cash it. Whereas at Greens, everything was, oh, man, don't get near this, don't get near that. Mm-hmm. So it was such a pleasure to go to Chez Panisse after that.
Well, that's interesting to hear.
Yeah.
I think Ed Sattison was trying to manage all the different elements in the restaurant, and there were so many different people involved, and I've interviewed a lot of people just about Greens. I haven't done anything with it, but it's like, it's interesting. It's like Rashomon, Rashomon, the Japanese film, where you get the same story from different points of view, and it's like each one is like really different.
Well, I was there for the whole job. We framed the floor. I rented an acetylene torch and a bunch of scaffolding, and cut all the pipes out of the ceiling, because it was industrial. And then Jerry Fuller and I replaced 314 panes of glass. They wanted the old ones because they said they were historic. We replaced all that glass in the main room.
Oh, because it was, you couldn't see through it.
It was clouded.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I was there for a long time and did the, actually I did the tile floor in the kitchen, which I think is gone now. But then Alice said to me, "Can you do the same thing at Chez Panisse?" And I did the tile floor in the kitchen at Chez Panisse, and it's still there.
Oh,
40
wow.
years.
Wow.
40 years.
Wow. Yeah, well, Greens has gone through a lot of changes through the years. When it started, I was maitre d' and co-manager. Dick made me a co-manager so I could make decisions on the floor. That's all it meant. I wasn't really being a manager. And then I kicked a board member of the Fort Mason Foundation. And I said, well, I'm a manager. I can do it. There were the administration of it, the number of staff was minuscule compared to what it evolved into. It was just amazing. I've seen that with Zen Center, but it happens with institutions in general. They start off with very little at the top. A forest ranger said it to me once, an old guy, when we first got Tassajara, who'd go around in the woods with, like mules and stuff, and fix trails and do things. And Putsy. Right. I
remember him.
Yeah. And, guys like him became fewer and fewer. And then there was a guy from the office who I'd meet with, and he said to me one day, he said, yeah, I used to be in the field. He said, we used to have one guy in the office for every 10 guys in the field. And now we have 10 guys in the office for every guy in the field.
Yeah, right.
And that's what happens. That's what happens. And you go, wow. And the San Francisco Zen Center, the amount of administration and people in the office and all the zillions of people who aren't Zen students working there. And Greens, there's no Zen students. And it's just like totally different.
I think that's right. That's right. Ulysses, I think, was the last one.
Yeah. And, I don't know if it can be avoided. It just seems like one of the rules of nature or something.
It's amazing, huh?
Yeah, yeah. And also, somebody was pointing out to me in one of these talks that the whole culture and the sociology, the type of people and everything, it evolved so that the people that are there now are not at all like the people who were there to begin with, and at different stages of its evolution. Like you said, people are coming now for a practice period and leaving or something, and it doesn't have the continuity it used to have.
Yeah. I remember when Ted, you remember Ted Marshall?
Oh, very well.
So, Ted died, I think it's 6 years ago now.
Yeah.
And when Ted got sick, we were Tassajara together. We fought some fires together, but we weren't particularly good friends, but then he got sick, and and so his wife said to me, I think it was Jane actually set it up. Jane Hirschfield.
Yeah.
Was the one that she said, well, why don't you go visit him? So I went to, I just went to see him because I felt like that was the right thing to do. So we ended up, I said, well, would you like to meet and talk about the Dharma? And he said, yeah, I really would like to do that. So we ended up meeting every Wednesday for 3 years, and we read the whole Lotus Sutra out loud.
Wow.
But
That's great.
It was, but the interesting, it was Ted and Peter Vandersteer and David Silva, and then a friend of Ted's named, anyway, a friend of Ted's, Harry Lindstrand, and we read the whole Lotus Sutra out loud. And Jay Semino actually also, and we would talk about our lives as we, read through the Lotus Sutra. But the point I'm making is that when he needed people around him who knew him at some deep level. It was his old Zen Center friends who hadn't seen him in 5 and 10 years who showed up. And that was pretty amazing to me. Even recently when Joan died, Joan Larkey.
Yeah.
She died in about a month ago. Who came to her aid but her old Zen Center friends, people she hadn't seen in years.
Yeah.
And there's just a bond. There's a bond there that exists. It's a familial thing. You don't even you don't recognize it's there, but when things get heavy, that's who shows up. It's simple, really.
That's best case. It hadn't always been that way. Doesn't always work out that way. But
it doesn't always work out. In my experiences in the group that I was part of there, sort of, 73, 4, 5, 6, 7, those years, that there is a lot of that kind of continuity. That people.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good. Yeah. So, from working on Chez Panisse up till now, are there any highlights there?
Well, I learned construction at Zen Center. Yeah. And I learned Japanese style construction, even though I didn't learn that much or that well. As you know, you sharpen for years when you're a Japanese style apprentice. I learned enough that I could do the work. And I've had a really good career in construction. And I've been extremely, extremely fortunate to have, been able to work on the buildings that I've worked on. And it's been a very good experience for me. I was well suited for it, and it worked out really well. So I'm very, very grateful for that opportunity. Construction suits me a lot better than academia.
Yeah.
The hard way.
Yeah, probably better for you too. Yeah.
Yeah, so now I can pretty much do what I want, and I feel very, very fortunate, very lucky. I have a lot of gratitude that have come my way.
Yeah. Now, I take it you got some sort of permission to teach or whatever it is from Norman?
So Richard Baker tried to ordain me, and I didn't have a solid enough feeling about him. I just didn't, he mentioned it a number of times when other people were being ordained, and I said, I don't think I'm ready for this.
Uh-huh.
So actually, I'm glad I didn't do it. So now we have something called entrustment.
Right.
So a number of people who I think at Zen Center, Laura Burgess and Wendy Johnson.
My first wife, Daya Goldschlag, just had that earlier this year, and Laura helped her.
With Tia.
Who?
With Tia Strozer.
Pardon?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, speak up. Just say what you were saying.
She had it with Tia Strozer.
Oh, with Tia. Yes. I just didn't understand you. Right.
Yeah, Tia asked me if I could make them kotsus, mioyes.
Oh.
So I made Daya has one. I made her one.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. That's great. Yeah.
So anyway, so I'm entrusted by Norman. You go through Shiho, you go through the whole process, and then you're entrusted, and then you can teach. I've had, 5 of my students have received Jukai. So, I can't do the Jukai. I have to do it with a priest. Our lineage is the most conservative on that issue, but Tia has gone around it. So I think it'll change at some point, but I don't worry about it too much.
Yeah. But that's great. That's great. Well,
so
go on.
I'm trying to give away what was given to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I felt like when I found Zazen, it freed me in some way. It sort of relieved suffering that I had been under and allowed me to find some ease in my life.
Right.
And if I can do that for people, I'll be very, very pleased.
Right. Yeah, that's well said. And, finding something like Zazen and appreciating it, it won't leave you. It's not like believing in something, which can, things change. You can stop believing in things. But if once one gets the Suzuki said once the eyes of Buddhism get on you won't get away from them. And I think that's what he was talking about. Like what happened to you the first time you sat, you discovered something that was you, that you weren't going to lose.
Yeah, I feel very, very fortunate to have wandered into Tassajara that time, those days.
Oh, yeah.
I got lucky.
Pardon me? Say it again.
I was saying I got lucky.
Yeah.
I was very fortunate.
Yeah. Well, do you have anything else you want to say before we go our separate ways?
No, I think that's. I would thank you. It's good to talk about the old times. I feel like it brings it into my awareness. I realize that I'm the same person and I'm a different person.
Yeah.
But that my experiences are what's made me who I am, and I feel grateful for them. Sometimes the ones I'm not so happy about, even.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So it's good. I hope to see you in person one of these days.
Yeah, well, come here, and you can.
Right.
And maybe I'll get back there, but I suppose, but I don't know.
Well, Zen Center is about to be vacated by all the people that you know and I know.
Yeah, I hear about that. But look, David Zimmerman is becoming the central abbot, so he's got another term. Mako is becoming the city center abbot, and she was just stayed with us for a few weeks. And the third one is it Fu at Gringo? No, Fu's leaving. No, it's Jiryu. Jiryu,
that's right.
Yeah, he's cool. So I think they're in pretty good hands. They've got a lot of difficult things to deal with. Do you run into any of identity is so important now, and which is very different from when I was there, and being having demands made on one to be sensitive to all sorts of things one didn't have to think about before. And Zen Center is very, it's trying to do the right thing with all of that. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do. We were there when it happened at Tassajara, when the explosion occurred.
Like what?
Well, there was a big incident there, with some people who were there who had some complaints that they put out. And so it just so happened we happened to be there at that moment.
Well, come on, tell me about it. I don't know what you're talking about.
I really wasn't party to it and tried to stay out of it, but there was a lot of people felt like they weren't treated fairly or openly, or they were insulted, and and they wanted to make a very big issue of it, and Zen Center had to deal with it. And I think the new leadership, that's going to be one of the things they're going to really have to deal with. And I think it's very hard.
Yeah.
It's a new world. I don't think I'm capable of dealing with all those issues.
Well, you're talking about in 2019.
I'm talking about this last year.
Oh, okay. Then I do know what you're talking about. Because you said, you went back this last year. Yeah.
We were there in the spring. I was working on the main gate.
Oh, okay. Okay, then I do know what you're talking about. Yeah. And I have talked to people about that. Well, I have some opinions. I think in that case, it seems to me, of course I wasn't there, that the people acting for the institution could have been a little, had more self-confidence, been a little tougher, and, if somebody's not following the schedule and is not practicing there anymore, they should leave. Oh boy, some of the things people who complained about, not even thinking about that, they're so, wow. I don't know. It's, and what I think? I just think, it's nice living here. I don't have to think about stuff like that.
I used to I would dream about going to Tassajara. Now, my feeling is I'm so happy when I go to Tassajara, and I'm equally happy when I leave. We may not be going back. I've sort of faced the fact that this may be this last trip there to when I worked on the main gate. Anyway, this may be our last trip there, which is very hard for me. But I think maybe it's time to give it up, because I feel like there's not a welcoming there of people who come in to do this or to help, or it's the opposite. So it's kind of sad to me, but they're going to have to work it out.
Yeah, I could assume that. Probably at this point, like for me, it'd be better to go in as a guest. I can't afford it, but and you can't. They're not even going to have a guest season, huh?
There is no.
Right.
I don't think they know how they're going to.
Yeah. Then come in as a contractor. Come in. No, you should go in with Paul Disco for that. That would be good.
But anyway, I will see if we can revive that. First, I need to talk to Paul about it. I'll talk to him about it at dinner at Chez Panisse.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And tell him hello. He and I have kept in touch. We've had a number of calls in the last years. All right. Yeah. Well,
okay, David.
Thank you very much. It's been really good talking with you. Very interesting.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you, and I hope to see you one of these days.
Yeah. Well, maybe here, maybe there.
In person.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Take care.
All right. Good night.
Thanks. Bye-bye. So thank you most kindly, Alan Block. I appreciate your sharing with us the trajectory of your life and way-seeking mind. And if you want to get hold of Alan, remember, if you want to sit with them or practice with them, it's alanblock510@gmail.com. This has been a Cuke Audio Podcast. I'm D.C. Puba of Cuke Archives and Cuke Audio, and we're coming to you from sleepy Sonora with Doggett Bandita and dear, lovely Katrinka. And we're wishing you and yours and all of us a grand awakening.